Well, joining us now is Alex Tait, co-founder of the Coalition for Reform in Political Advertising. Alex, really good to see you this morning. I suppose then, given the title that we've just provided you with, you must be cock-a-hoop at the decision taken by Jack Dorsey.
Yes, it's a bold move by them. I think two quite startling facts for your viewers they probably aren't aware of is, actually, if you look at the last UK election, that's probably fairly representative, £50,000 was spent by political advertisers on Twitter compared to £3 million on Facebook. So actually, in terms of a sacrifice, it's not as big a drop in revenue it's going to encounter than Facebook, for example, if it did the same. The other really quite startling fact that I think people would be surprised to hear is that actually, despite all of the talk over the last couple of years, there have still been no changes of significance to the rules around political advertising. So there are much more rules, for example, for an advertiser selling soap than there are for the most important form of advertising, political advertising. And I think in some ways Twitter can see a lot of the issues resurfacing and repeating themselves in the US election next year and in the upcoming UK election than we've seen in the Brexit referendum, for example, a couple of years ago.
Yeah, and I suppose also, Alex, I mean, the fact of the matter is, I mean, social media is not a recent invention. It's been around for quite some time. I remember covering the 2010 general election when people at that point were suggesting this will be the social media election. And yet, as you point out, the rules have lagged, well, significantly behind.
That's right, yeah, and I think, you know, when we're barrelling ahead towards obviously towards an election date now, and there are solutions to this. Our campaign, it's a not-for-profit campaign, we launched a campaign pledge yesterday where one of the points in it is if a political advertiser is found to have, for example, a lie in their advert, that they agree to withdraw or amend it. And actually, Neil, if you have a politician on in the next couple of days, it'd be quite interesting to ask them if they would sign up to something like that. And if not, why not? Maybe our voters and I think your viewers would be quite interested to hear the response to that.
Do you know what? I'll bear it in mind, Alex, and next time I've got some willing victim, I certainly will ask them. But we should point out, of course, that actually when you look at social media, the bulk of the political content is not necessarily paid advertising. It's individual accounts, blue-tick accounts on Twitter, retweeting their stuff. It's people sharing articles that serve to confirm their own personal politics. So, I mean, this is a battle that needs to be had, clearly, but there's a broader conflict that we need to be aware of.
That's right, and there are lots of steps being talked about in how to combat misinformation in paid adverts, but also actually in the non-paid environment on platforms. The key issue here, though, is that despite all of the talk and different proposals that come forward from the government, nothing's happened. The politicians haven't implemented changes to the rules. We're, I think, going to see the consequences of that coming into the UK election. The big sort of action and the big point around all of this is that politicians and the government ultimately needs to put a modernisation of the rules around political advertising in place.
Well, Alex, we will keep an eye on what happens during this election and, of course, take your idea up and put that question to politicians next time I see them. For now, thanks very much for joining us on the Early Rundown. Appreciate it.
Thanks.